All right, folks, with elections looming, you would have heard elections September 3, nomination day August 18, but with elections looming, many of us will be going to the polls. However, this morning we wanted to speak about the political landscape before the elections, and with us this morning, you would have seen him many times here on Smile. He's on the phone with us this morning, Richard Dickie Crawford, who is a political commentator. Good morning, sir. Richard, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. How are you, sir?
I can't complain. Give thanks. You've been keeping safe during this very strange times, I'm sure.
Yes, it has changed our whole modus operandi, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, we're fighting it all the same.
Yep. No surprise. We expected, it was due before March next year, so we expected that we would hear the call about the election. So really no surprise. Maybe the surprise is that it's going to happen so quickly after being announced, September 3. With what's going on now, and you've heard both parties saying that they have the protocols in place, but how difficult would it be to get the electorate out in a time like this? Hello?
No, come again, yes.
No, I said, how difficult would it be to get everyone out at a time like this to go vote and campaigning and stuff like that?
Well, let's put it this way. It's gonna have an impact on the traditional way of getting people out to vote. You know, gathered in great bunches and traveling up and down and enjoying themselves at the same time while campaigning. Certainly, COVID-19 has changed the whole of that operation. And frankly, the Prime Minister himself, who just called the election yesterday, recognizes that. That's one of the reasons why the decision has been made to call the election now. As many analysts will say, it can only get worse if you leave it, as the predictions go down the line. He's riding high at this point in time, based on the response to the polls and the polls itself, and also the response to the performance of the government regarding trying to tackle and handle the COVID-19 situation. So it is the best possible time, I think, now for the Prime Minister to call the election. Leaving it and waiting could only make it and can only make it become more difficult for him.
More difficult for him, but what about the electorate? I know in the United States, the outstanding president there said he wanted to put off the elections because of the pandemic, which he doesn't have the authority to do. But was there any thought of saying to Jamaicans, well, we know you can't bunch up and things, so we're not going to call the elections until this thing died down? Would that have been better for everyone?
Not necessarily, no, because, listen, the COVID-19 situation has international implications. So whilst we may say, yes, let us leave it and be very careful and everybody stay home and nobody moves, there's certain things that are beyond your control because of trade and visitors and whatnot. I do believe we are ahead in the sense of the President of the United States of America in this regard. The President of the United States of America is really certainly seeking to win at all costs. And therefore, it matters not what the side effects and, in fact, the frontal effects are and are turning out to be. You know the rates of infection that have arisen recently over there. So there's a greater level of consideration and responsibility, I think, coming out at this time from the Jamaican political system, from the Jamaican Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, as opposed to what's happening in what is not a good situation for the people of the United States of America.
I have to ask you, Mr. Crawford.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to start with this now. What are the polls saying? We're going to the polls September the 3rd. September 3, 63 seats. What are the polls saying? Different polls saying different things? What's out there right now? What do they say?
Well,
JLP, PNP, how many seats for each party?
Yes, quite. I've seen the Bill Johnson polls. I haven't really seen the Blue Dot, which is another poll that has been done, and I really would love to see it, and I'm waiting to see it. And I think there's a third poll to Don Anderson. I haven't seen anything from him either. So, but it's certainly the Bill Johnson poll shows the JLP with a lead of 36%. to the PNPs, 17% of the likely voters who will turn out to vote for them. Another very interesting development comes from Garfield Higgins. Now, Garfield is a pretty strong supporter of the Jamaica Labour Party and a writer, but he did a position, he did an analysis where the GLP has, as he sees it, 25 safe seats going into the next election at this point in time, and 16 safe seats for the People's National Party. So that would then leave 22 marginal seats out there out of the 63. The GLP, if they have 25 safe seats and can hold that, then they need to win what? 6 more?
Yep, 7.
7 more, and the PNP would have to win quite a bit more to overturn the government and become the government. Now, ironically, the last time we had a general election, that's one thing that caught the People's National Party. They lost so many of the seats that they thought they had safe, and the GLP swiped those 17 or 18 seats from them. So what I'm trying to say is that the polls and basically the position of the society tends to suggest that the government has worked hard, they've tried hard. COVID-19 so far has given them some kudos. There are some negatives attached to their performance at the same time. But by and large, based on that, at this time, you would say, yes, they're looking good to win. But in the politics that we play and in the politics that we have here, you never can tell. And you have to be extremely careful.
Well,
do you think,
I was going to say, yes, you can never tell it in Jamaica where it's going to land. And then I want to ask you now, nomination day is coming. We have independents. We have a new party coming on the scene, which is not new to have new parties. We've had that from time begun. But who are the newcomers to the political arena in party or independents that you know of?
Well, that's a very good question, and I've sort of stayed away from it. I can't really dive into it too tough because I haven't heard too much from the 2 new parties. And that could give you another indication of what is likely to happen in the campaign and on election day. Who knows? They haven't said much. They've said very little as far as I can pick up. And therefore, it's hard to gauge what impact they would have on the dominant traditional 2 parties. But then, as you rightly asked the question, as someone who's so steeped and understands these things, it's a good question. Who knows what's coming from them, and we ought to hear.
Yeah. And we have to go, but the final question, 20-something days, is it, until election day? Is that enough time to campaign? Especially if you're a new party, newcomer? Well,
the others will have an advantage. And maybe that's the reason why I say I don't hear much from the new parties. They should be the ones campaigning more vigorously because they have more ground to cover.
Yeah. Right.
But the traditionals will step it up, and I think they all have enough time. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And I believe it is being led that way, you have to have a more responsible campaign this time. It can't be driving up and down and a lot of hoopla.
Well, no, not in this time.
Not at this time.
Not at this time, Mr. Crawford. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break.
No problem.
I want to thank you for coming on this morning and sharing your views, and we'll surely connect again, I'm sure, before the election day.
Thank you, sir, Dickie. Take care.
Okay,
Richard Dickie Crawford,
responsible campaigning, Neville.
Still to come, RG Archives feature our national stadium and athletics journey. What news is coming up next?
So when you campaign.